Hey everyone, it's Mostly Casual Commander. I'm BK. We're on Discord and Patreon. Links are in the description. Busterkins is playing Elminster. He's hoping to discount his instants and sorceries due to scrying and make a bunch of fairy dragons. I'm playing Alela, Artful Provocateur. I'm aiming at overwhelming my opponents with a whole bunch of fairies. J-Man is playing Kaalia of the Vast, hoping to cheat out angels, demons, and dragons from his hand onto the battlefield for free. Kyle is playing Anhelo, the Painter, looking to copy instants and sorcery spells at the cost of some of his creatures. Please help us out by subscribing, and Meatball will be making an appearance in this video. Busterkins kicks us off by playing Prairie Stream as his land for turn, and then he passes to me. I play a Godless Shrine and have it enter the battlefield tapped. On to J-Man's turn, he plays Vault of Champions as his land for turn, and then he passes it over to Kyle. He'll play a Command Tower as his land, and then he uses that to play Ponder. So he'll look at the top 3 cards of his library, put them back in any order, or he can shuffle. In this case, he does. Has J-Man cut, he draws the card, and then he passes over to Busterkins. And on his turn, he'll draw, and then he'll play a Reliquary Tower as his land, which is neat, because now he doesn't have a maximum hand size. He plays an Arcane Signet before passing the turn back over to me. On my turn, I'll play Morphic Pool as my land, which will enter the battlefield untapped because I have 3 opponents. On J-Man's turn, he'll play Needle Verge Pathway on the red side. And then classic J-Man will cast his super fancy secret lair drop, Arcane Signet. He passes the turn back over to Kyle, who plays Watery Grave, and he'll have it enter the battlefield untapped at the cost of 2 life. He'll play Demir's Signet as well, before passing the turn back over to Busterkins. He'll draw, and he'll play Sea of Clouds, which enters the battlefield untapped, of course. And with that out, he'll cast Cryptid Annelid. This will allow him to scry once, scry twice, and scry thrice, which is so much better than saying once, twice, and 3 times. Once, twice, thrice is just so much better. Am I right? Hashtag Team Thrice. Anyway, Busterkins figures out his scrying and he passes the turn over to me. I play Seat of the Synod as my land, and then I really don't have much else going on, so I pass to J-Man. On a J-Man's turn, he'll play Marsh Flats as his land. He'll pay 1 life, sack it, and go and find, what did he find? A Sacred Foundry. He'll have that enter the battlefield untapped at the cost of 2 more life, and then he'll use that to cast his commander, Kaalia of the Vast, allowing him to cheat out angels, demons, and dragons when he attacks. Over to Kyle's turn, he will take 2 damage for an untapped Steam Vents. He'll follow that up by casting Fell War Stone, giving him some more manas, and then he'll tap and cast his commander, Anhelo the Painter. This is a 1/3 death touchy boy looking to copy spells by killing his own stuff. On to Busterkins' turn, he plays an island as his land for turn, and then he'll cast Rhystic Study, everybody's favorite. This is a good card in blue. With that on the stack, I cast Scion of Una, so that way I don't have to just give him a card, because I was going to flash that in at the end of my turn anyway. On to my turn, I draw, and I play Hall of Heliod's Generosity, which will allow me to bring back my enchantments that are in my graveyard, which there are none. Alela, Artful Provocateur, hits my battlefield, and unfortunately I have to give Busterkins a card thanks to his Rhystic Study. I move to combat for that reason, and he takes a couple points of damage before I pass the turn back over to J-Man. He plays Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, so every land on the battlefield is now a swamp in addition to its other types. He moves to combat, which will trigger Kaalia, so he'll get a free Enduring Angel onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking Kyle as well. So Kyle will take a bunch of damage and drop down to 28. He then casts Jet Medallion on his second main phase, triggering Rhystic Study, getting Busterkins a card. Then J-Man casts Desecration Demon. This is a 6/6 flyer that can get bigger and also be tapped by your opponents. On Kyle's turn, he plays a Mountain as his land for turn, and then he'll cast an Arcane Signet that'll trigger Busterkins' Rhystic Study, but Kyle pays for it, denying him that card draw. Got him. Then Kyle casts Rekindling Phoenix. That's probably decent with his commander and getting a creature back repeatedly. On Busterkins' turn, he plays an island as his land, and then he'll cast Netherese Puzzle Ward. Is that how you pronounce that? So he'll start scrying in his upkeep and possibly drawing additional cards, which is neat. On my turn, I play a tapped Temple of Silence, allowing me to scry 1. I would like to do stuff with my deck, so I keep that card on top, hoping that I can do that. I move to combat, swinging at Busterkins and smacking him around a little bit. I pass the turn to J-Man. He plays a spectator seating, which comes in untapped, of course. Then J-Man moves into the red zone, swinging at Busterkins. This will trigger Kaalia. He'll get a free Resplendent Angel onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking Busterkins. He'll activate it before damage is dealt, dropping Busterkins to 20. He'll gain some life, and because he gained 5 life, he'll get a free Angel on his end step. J-Man passes the turn over to Kyle, who draws and moves right into combat, attacking his former friend BK. I'll take some damage, and then on his second main phase, Kyle will cast Fact or Fiction, and thanks to Anhelo, he will casualty his Rekindling Phoenix, therefore getting a second copy of Fact or Fiction. Rekindling Phoenix also says when it dies, put this elemental token out onto the battlefield. I was a little bit surprised that we didn't have that token in our collection. We have quite a bit. So Kyle resolves his first Fact or Fiction. J-Man gives him the choice of 4 lands or a Torment of Hellfire. Kyle takes the 4 lands. Kyle resolves a second, revealing Kess, Dissident Mage, Dragon's Rage Channeler, Cyclonic Rift, and 2 lands. Kyle takes the pile with DRC, Kess, and a land. He plays a mountain as his land for turn. Then he'll cast Is It Signet, triggering Rhystic Study, giving Busterkins a card. He then casts Dragon's Rage Channeler, which cool people call DRC, I guess. I'm not really with it. On to Busterkins' upkeep, his thing will trigger. He rolled a 3, so he'll scry 3. After he sorts that out, he'll draw for turn, and then he'll play an island as his land for turn. Following that up, he'll cast his commander, Elminster. Just Elminster. Like all those single-named artists out there, like, I don't know, like Adele or Confucius. He plays a Mystical Tutor, and this allows him to go find a really cool spell, a Storm Herd. So he'll put that on top of his library, and then with Elminster out, he activates its -3, exiling Storm Herd off the top of his library, and netting him 10 fairy dragons, because his ability gives fairy dragons equal to the mana value of the spell you exiled. Onto my turn, I draw, and move right into combat, back over at Kyle. I deal him a few points of commander damage, and pass the turn to J-Man. Dragonskull Summit hits his battlefield, and then he moves to combat, sharing the love, attacking all 3 of us, getting a Righteous Valkyrie out when Kaalia triggers. That might start gaining him some life and pumping his team. Before damage, he pumps up Resplendent Angel. Kyle takes his beats. Busterkins throws a fairy dragon in front of the creature attacking him, and I use my Scion of Una to trade with Kaalia. I take my beats, and then J-Man moves to his end step. This will trigger Resplendent Angel because he gained 5 life, getting him another Angel. This will also trigger Righteous Valkyrie, giving him additional life because the Angel entered the battlefield. Then over to Kyle. On his upkeep, Rekindling Phoenix comes back to his battlefield. He draws and plays a Choked Estuary, revealing a fancy island. And then he casts Mana Geyser, where X equals 11, but he'll sacrifice Rekindling Phoenix thanks to Anhelo, and then he'll get another copy of Mana Geyser, where X equals 11. So those 2 X's equal 22. Can you believe it? In addition, Dragon's Rage Channeler triggers, allowing him to Surveil 1 as well. So he'll start resolving these spells and abilities. He'll represent his floating mana with a spin down life counter. He'll resolve the Surveil and put it into his bin. And so once he has all of that sorted out, he'll have a total of 22 floating red mana at his disposal, and he'll start using a little bit of that to cast Kess, Dissident Mage. He denies Busterkins a card by paying for his Rhystic Study trigger, and then because of Kess, he will be able to cast Torment of Hellfire from his graveyard, where X equals 17. So my other 2 opponents might survive this, but I don't think I would. So I have to counterspell this, triggering Rhystic Study, which I pay for using Hall of Heliod's Generosity, and I deny Kyle the satisfaction of probably just killing me. As a follow-up, he casts Skyclave Shade and moves into combat, swinging his Dragon's Rage Channeler at me, because it has to attack. On Busterkins' upkeep, his thing triggers again. He rolls a 4, so he gets to scry 4, and then he'll get to draw a card. In addition, it'll also reduce the cost of Approach of the Second Sun by 4, because that's how many he scried. So Busterkins gets to gain 7 life here. He accidentally only gains 6. Classic Busterkins. Then if he casts Approach again, he wins the game. So with that being the 7th card from the top of his library, he goes a diggin'. He activated Elminster to draw a card and then scry 2. Then he casts Preordain to scry 2 more and then draw a card. So that is all 6 cards that were on top of his library are now out of the way. And Approach of the Second Sun is the next card he'll draw. He has to pass the turn, and I play a Glacial Fortress. And given my opening hand and what I drew into this game, I just decide to blow everybody's creatures up with Kaya's Wrath, as I'm staring down the barrel of an Approach of the Second Sun. So everybody's stuff dies, but in response, J-Man casts Path to Exile on one of his angles so that he gets a land out of the exchange. I guess he had the same thought of Approach, here's a kill spell, doesn't do anything. So he gets a Plains out into the battlefield. I pass the turn, he draws, and he casts Krav, the Unredeemed, which allows him to go find Regna, the Redeemer. This also triggers Busterkin's Rhystic Study. J-Man says you could have that. And then over to Kyle's turn, he plays an island. That will landfall trigger his Skyclave Shade, and he can cast that from his graveyard. He does so with the kicker cost, so it enters the battlefield with some +1/+1 counters on it. And he'll pay for Rhystic Study. He then casts Dika, Fractal Theorist, and no real help there, sadly. So he lets Busterkins draw one. Onto his upkeep, he gets another 4 off of his thing. He'll scry 4, he'll draw a card, then he'll draw for turn, and then he figuratively twists the knife a little bit more by activating his commander, and then casting Approach for the 2nd time.
I concede.
I also concede.
No, you guys just lose.
I'll allow it.
Well, that makes Busterkins the winner. Congrats.
1.
What are you doing?
You weren't even counting it!
1, 2, 3.
Oh my god.
Hold it. Hold it.
Oh, why are you?
All right, just end that nonsense. As promised, here's Meatball. And there you have it, the fat cat and his still fat but not quite as fat younger brother Peanut. Please let us know what you thought about the game in the comments. You can join our conversations on Discord, and please consider supporting the channel by becoming a patron. Links are in the description. As always, thank you for watching.